So welcome to the monthly class. My name's Jason Donaldson, as you guys know, and those that don't. What I am is basically been trained as a marriage and family therapist, but I'm working more as a spiritual guidance mentor, where I work with people not only with Western therapeutic approaches, but also more of the spiritual, esoteric, and galactic ascension type awarenesses and perspectives. So I like to bring that into the fold, and also doing breathwork ceremonies, Sekhem healings, which is ancient Egyptian healing art similar to Reiki. And today I'm presenting a class on a subject that was really interesting for me this month, that really inspired me to dive into a book that triggered me considerably, like triggered the shit out of me 10 years ago, and I couldn't even read it. I had to put it down. And even now, this time going through it, it's bringing up all this emotion, and it's what the whole idea is for us to feel this emotion rather than try to overpower it. And I'll get into more of that later, but that's basically what this video will be about, what this class will be about, exploring this material as far as what the will is and how that relates to our emotions and our desires and things of that nature. Why I'm doing this is because like I said, I'm excited about it. I'm wanting to share it with others so that they can experience it as well. And also it helps me learn it. And I'll probably move on to something else too, but each time I discover a piece of the puzzle, there's more information that comes through, and then I start noticing more patterns, and something even more amazing comes through. And pretty soon, like a lot of my things I struggle with illness and depression, anxiety, and all that stuff, largely starts to dissipate more and more. And that's been my journey as I keep moving forward. So if you're with me on this today, hopefully what you'll get is something similar where we can actually dive into some of the mechanisms of why it's hard to manifest on this planet, why there is so much violence and destruction and also upheaval, and why people kind of just lash out sometimes. Like what's behind that, according to this material I'll be presenting. And I am by no means an expert on this. I mean, I just read the first book. There's a whole series of books on this information, but I want to just present the perspective and take in what resonates and just discard the rest. And we'll also do a guided meditation at the end, which will be a bit of an experiential exercise where it'll be actually allowing ourselves to feel without thinking. So that's the title of this class, is Feeling Without Thinking. And I'll get into why that's important. Following the theme of the newsletter, this is Feeling Without Thinking. And what's come to me, I've kind of boiled it down to more of basically balance and integration of all the parts of ourselves, even the parts we don't really like and we'd rather not listen to, or the ones that feel really painful to connect with. It's bringing all those into the fold so that we all come out, like nobody gets left behind as we ascend with the planet, which she is ascending. And not all the people will, even me or any of us, who knows, but like the more we embrace what comes at us as life progresses, we're going to go where we need to go. And there's really no judgment or negativity around that. And what does it mean to ascend anyway? I mean, we're always doing that no matter what. So it's kind of a triggering word for people in general. I don't even like to use it. But I'll get into more of this and hopefully it'll make more sense. So like I said, continuing the theme of the newsletter, if you haven't already, you can sign up for it at jasondonaldsonhealer.com. And so the theme that came through, and in my own personal life too, is I had this injury, a hernia that I had to get surgically repaired. And as much as I wanted to just heal it with my energy work and, maybe other people, and actually I had some help from Jacqueline. Thank you for that, Jacqueline, with your pranic healing, which is really helpful. It did help me let go of what was coming up and shift it. And I also had a really amazing tarot reading from my friend Deepa, which was phenomenal and really helped me get more perspective and the insight into what my options are and choices, and to follow through with that. So yeah, what came through with all that is really, I'm going to jump ahead of on this list, but it's like facing life as it comes, and actually feeling it. And when it comes to like physical injury or pain in the body, we don't really have an option. It's like it's got to the point where it's manifested and it's happening, and we're going to feel it whether or not we want to. And again, it's like being with that feeling rather than letting it take us down or upset us. There's things we can do to help shift that, and I'll cover that a little later, at least from my perspective. I see, for a while now, and the coming months especially, we're in a time of the necessary integration of all parts, where we're going to see a lot of people getting upset, blow-ups, these emotional outbursts. And even like in Hawaii, Mauna Loa erupted after 40 years, and it's this release and this relieving the pressure and what needs to come to the surface to be acknowledged and felt and recognized. And the more we do that, the more we become integrated. And it's kind of one of the spiritual trappings that we think we shouldn't feel something that's negative, like this is negative, I shouldn't be feeling it, when really there's nothing negative. It's all just energy, it's all just experience. And it's us that puts the label of negativity on it. And often when we do that, we make it linger. As we push it away, we make it stronger. It comes at us harder and harder until it lands in the body, until it becomes a volcano of emotion. And I'll get into that more and how this played out in certain civilizations. It's also a time of revealing and remembering. I'm really excited about this because I've been hearing this for years, like decades, that there's going to be technology released that's going to revolutionize and change the world. It'll probably mess up our economy for a while, but some really beneficial technology is going to come out probably in the next 3 to 4 months based on what some people are sharing. Also, a lot of us have already experienced this connection with our spirit guides, our star family, our brothers and sisters from elsewhere, whether that's a multidimensional aspect or if that's actual physical beings showing up. And that's going to be happening at some point in the very near future as well, as far as what I feel is coming forth for us as we're moving on this timeline with what we're experiencing. So also letting go of the denial of these things as they come out, like our beliefs about the way the world is and how things are. The more we hold on to the denial of not wanting to look at it, the more it's going to cause pain and upheaval. And we'll see that in the collective with people that don't want to acknowledge certain things. And it's been said that they'll be moved somewhere else. And that's perfectly fine because they're not ready for that type of world yet, or that's not in resonance of their frequency of where they're at. And I know I've been there plenty of lifetimes where I didn't want unity and oneness. I wanted to have power and domination, and that was fun for me until it wasn't anymore, until I realized it was never really a separation from God, but it was like not the most congruent expression of who I am at the highest level and what I want to move into. And that's really complex stuff to get into. I'm getting a little off track, so I'll keep going. And then the biggest one is I'm seeing more and more that judgments is really what determines our reality. Like basically what we judge in any moment becomes a belief, which becomes a way of viewing the world, which is like an operating system on a computer. Like, this is what this is, and this is what that is. And it doesn't change. And it brings me comfort and a certain level of safety. And then when that's threatened, it really like throws things off. And I think that's where we're moving into as well, is we're going to get thrown off and we're not going to know what's going to happen. And that's why this information that I'm going to be sharing, I think, is so valuable, this need for integration. And so what are we integrating? And that's the will, the body, and the spirit. And so this, again, is based on the Right Use of Will book series. And it's been around since 1984, I believe, or 87. And it was actually channeled by, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Ceanne DeRohan. What it sounds like a direct connection to like source energy or all that is, as much as possible, that she's able to channel this through. And it presents the story of a split that occurred on this planet where originally there was this landmass called Pan. And then there was this destruction that took place for various reasons. I don't want to give it away because it's in the book and I highly recommend reading it for yourself. But in this split, there was this idea that, well, I'll get into like what the will and the body is. And so they're slightly different, but very closely matched from what I can gather. But the will is basically what allows spirit to manifest on this planet. And it's the deep feeling, the emotion, it's a feminine energy. It's like the desires we have, the longings. And some of these can be quite intense, especially if they're denied or repressed. And it really requires free expression. It's very physical. And so this would be like, those of us that live in Hawaii, there's Lower Puna, where there's a lot of like hippies and people are very earthy and, they're very heart connected and open and, emotional. And so there's a lot of love there, but there's also a lot of emotion. And sometimes it's not always that balanced. And that's where like the spirit comes in my perspective, is the spirit sees like all the possibilities. And I've always felt like it's healed, whole, and complete. And it's always evolving. So it's not like it's God itself, but it's like our oversoul, or this aspect of us that is basically very evolved. But you can see my bias with that. And I'm more of the spirit realm. I lean towards that more. And so this will probably be a little biased if anybody watches this and really knows this material. But I've always leaned more towards the spirit because I didn't like how sensitive I was. I didn't like how much I felt because I felt so much. And nobody really told me that it was my thinking about what I was feeling, my trying to suppress it and trying to deny it and judge it, which made it worse, which made it linger over time. We're just not told such things. People tell us to feel it, but we're also told that the will is something that needs to be controlled, that it needs to be kept in check, because if it isn't, then we'll all just kill each other, and it'll just be ultimate chaos, which really isn't the case. That only happens when it's repressed and denied for a period of time. And that's what happened with these other civilizations. Again, take in what resonates and discard the rest. If anything doesn't vibe with what feels right for you inside, don't take it as gospel. Don't take it on, because like I said, I'm just sharing my excitement and my journey with what all this is. And so one of the quotes I really liked in there that stood out, there's only a couple I wrote down, but this one: the spirit can see all possibilities. The will is meant to select what is right for the moment among all those possibilities. So I know a lot of us struggle with that, or I do anyway, where it's like, what do I do? I could do this, I could do that, and maybe it's not time for that yet. And the idea of divine right timing, and we're trying to force something to happen, and it's just not happening. And that's often what happens when we're not integrating the will and the spirit, where we're used to no, I feel fine, everything's okay. I'm going to meditate, I'm going to shift this energy, and I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. If we do that enough times, we're not really feeling what we're feeling as far as our inspiration in life as well. Like, what do we want to do and where do we want to go? What ultimately happens when there's a balance, we're able to listen not only to the spirit, which can give us all these infinite possibilities. And there's I often feel this feeling, knowing energy that comes through. And then also the will, the more grounded, the more physical. Okay, what are my options right now around me? What can I move to in this moment? I get that I'm an unlimited being of light and love and energy, and at the same time, it's well, right now I'm in a room and I'm kind of bored. What do I do? And it's the will would tell you oh, we'll play some music. And then our intellect would probably come in, this other part that they don't really talk about much in the book, and be no, you need to work, you need to get this other stuff done, you need to do something with your time rather than just play and be a hippie. But a lot of times we get more done by being a hippie and sharing good vibes than we do by being stressed out and trying to make things happen in the world or force things on, force an agenda. This is a lot of what I feel is happening in my life in particular, is that I'm not fully manifesting because there's parts that I'm not willing to feel, although I do feel them. I've always kind of judged it at the same time, or felt like it shouldn't be happening. More and more it's embracing oh, okay, I have this injury and maybe I did do something to cause it, but right now it's okay. I'm just going to feel it, I'm going to move through it. Or sometimes I'm sad, and that's okay. And just not judging it and thinking it, feeling guilty about it. That, oh, because the spirit's well, you manifested this, and we'll blame the will a lot of times. It's oh, it was you eating all that food that caused your digestive issues, all that food you had to have, or all the alcohol you drank when you were younger, and this is the price now. And ultimately, we don't know what caused it, but it's happening now. And so it's allowing ourselves to feel it, what's actually happening, and that creates more of the flow. And the other quote I like: the will is meant to receive from the spirit and trust its guidance, and the spirit is meant to receive from the will and trust its response. Basically what I was saying is, how do we dance with each other? How do we all get along with all the parts of ourselves? So this is what happens when the will or the spirit is denied. It can be explosive outbursts. Basically, when the split happened, where one side was weighted with the other, when beings weren't embracing the spirit aspect and they were more driven towards the will, they wanted to embrace the will and reject the spirit. Or if they were rejecting the will and embracing the spirit, there was these explosive outbursts that could happen as things progressed. It actually went quite well for a while, where it was actually working out, because there is this energy of all things, what you would call God or source energy, that we can call on and we can ask for help with. But the more we deny these aspects of ourselves, the harder it is to even discern that energy, where that becomes scary. Oh, what is this energy that's impulsing me to go build this boat thing or go to this area of the land. Well, I don't trust it. It feels weird. So that was a lot of what basically they say created death on the planet. Like there was no death. Nobody died prior to this split. And it brought in a lot of confusion. And then ultimately there become violence. And we see this with, not to call anybody out because I don't know the man, but like with Will Smith. And I've seen this with other people where, there was a lot more going on there than just an emotional outburst. There's all this stuff, but it just kind of came out in that display of something he knew was wrong, and maybe trying to be perfect for all those years. And it all just built up, or trying to be the man he thinks his wife wants him to be and go up there and do that. Where it looked like she obviously wanted him to do something. And so he went up there and did something that ultimately didn't really help his career and was pretty violent, but that's how that plays out. And his name is even Will too. I mean, it's really interesting. I didn't even put that together until I was working on this. I was like, oh yeah, his name's Will. Like he often talks about how he's one of the hardest working people in the show business, and how hard he works. And a lot of times we're suppressing our will when we're doing that. Like people think it's willpower, but that's not what this is with the Right Use of Will book series. What they're describing, they're talking about like free will, or the will as far as our desires and our feminine receptivity of what we want to experience in this lifetime, and our ability to tune into our body and what it's telling us as well. A lot of it is spoken of the denial, this denial energy. When we deny these parts of ourselves, it accumulates on Earth. And so you see more and more of basically the descent into like the darkness and the forgetting that a lot of people experienced on this planet that we're now coming out of, where we had all these lifetimes where we were in this denser planet. They talk about that, some of the channeled material with Bashar. He talks about there's planets with density and limitation, but not like ours. Ours is one of the toughest. We have one of the toughest levels of limitation and density here. And so it's really interesting for all of them. They're all really curious, like how are they overcoming this? And it's really amazing because we went so dense and then we're coming out of it, like really creating like diamonds and stuff. So it's really quite exciting to know that so much of what we suffered has actually been just what we had to overcome being on this planet, how far we've come with that. And we've ultimately done it, just following the path. With that denial, it was difficult to hear the divine guidance, like I mentioned earlier, and difficulty in seeing the solutions that are available to us in the moment. And so this is what I found really interesting, is how it's most often denied. Like a lot of this book was focused on the denial of will, because it was about healing and evolving the emotional body. This is the actual book here. And they were saying the judgments, they explained judgments really well, how it's basically a conditional acceptance. It's where we don't really know what's going on, but our mind has a need to figure it out, to know. And so it just makes up this story, makes up this judgment. Not, oh, this is why it's happening, because what gets plugged in there is something from childhood, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, all these core negative beliefs that we find in a lot of the shadow work groups that a number of us have participated in. There's always these bottom level core negative beliefs that everyone gets to at some point, and they're like, oh, it's because I didn't feel loved as a child. And that was just the illusion that we bought into. That was the judgment that we grabbed onto and made part of our operating system, part of how we viewed the world. And so it's basically a lot of denial is pretending we understand something when we really don't. And this creates a rigid perception of our reality. And it's a lot of that's offered to us too in TV shows, beliefs such as religion that have been distorted, whether intentionally or unintentionally. A lot of it's just interpretation for people and what serves them, has been what I've noticed. And then, that becomes like our operating system, where this is how I view and interact with the world. And it's hard to rattle that. It's hard to, when that's challenged, it really brings up a lot of emotion. And that's why the emotion is such a blessing, especially if it's what we'd call a negative emotion, because it's pointing to something that we're holding on to that isn't really helping us in our life. Like it's actually the feedback that, oh, if I'm angry, I'm not understanding what's happening. Like if someone's talking to me and I'm getting angry at them, especially if they're calm, then there's something I'm not really hearing or understanding, or they're a dick and, I can just let it go and not take it personal. But that's really hard because it's pushing on some kind of belief system. It's pushing on a way that I use to navigate the world. And so these judgments get stored as emotions that get held in the body. And that's what ultimately a lot of disease is this densification of the body through these limiting beliefs and patterns and basically lowering our frequency. And we all know that. And at the same time, we've never really been taught that you can release the emotion and you can even like scream and yell, and that's okay. And that's, in fact, the book recommends doing that, but going somewhere where you feel safe and where that can be accepted and held. And there isn't many places you can do that unless you're totally alone. And, Lower Puna, I mentioned, there are places where you can primal scream and people are okay with it. They don't get triggered because they're like, yeah, let's get it out. And that's a lot of what happened in like Lemuria in the beginning. They're like, they explored their will and they just lived it. They lived their emotion. It was raw, it was real, and it never got too chaotic until later because they kept, suppressing the spirit. But it was very, very beautiful civilization, which I'll explain a little more about what the book shared with that. And same with Atlantis. Atlantis was this high spiritually minded civilization that did really well as well. It's slightly different. They were more into science, intellectualism, and things of that nature. But they too were really successful in what they did. But they kept denying the will, and it eventually caught up with them. They're unable to trust it could be expressed, heard, and ultimately acknowledged. So the emotional control, again, that's the denial, the suppression of what we're feeling. We think we're regulating our emotions and controlling them, which we kind of need to because we're all so intensely disconnected from what is harmonious and balanced with acknowledging all our parts of selves because of how we grew up and how the society is structured. Some of us a little better than others, but most people, we're really struggling with what am I feeling right now and why do I feel this and what's going on? And a lot of it is just because we've suppressed so much that we don't know anymore. We don't let it come out. And so it gets so intense that it's just this big glob of like metamorphic rock, that's like all fused together. And it's like, there's all kinds of feelings in there. I remember early on when I was really starting to meditate and actually care about feeling and trying to embody more of my spiritual practices, I'd cry every time. Every time I meditated, I'd cry. And then there'd be other times I'd start crying and laughing at the same time. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? My judgment came in. I'm a, lunatic. I must be a lunatic. This isn't normal, but actually it is. It's quite normal. Like the crying and the laughter are very similar. How many times have you cried from joy? It's powerful. I've done that a lot lately, with meeting my, partner, and I'm really feeling in a better place. Is like tears of joy now. It's really great. And so what happens is, with these denials, that the will isn't able to trust that it can be heard, that it can actually express what it's feeling, that it can be heard, and most especially acknowledged. Like when we're crying, it's like, it's okay. I'm crying right now. It doesn't mean anything. Like I had that with getting ready to go into a grocery store. I wasn't crying about it, but I was really nervous and like scared. I'm like, what's wrong with you? It's going to the grocery store. And then I caught it and I was, oh wait, yeah, I feel that too. It's okay. Versus you have a companion that's upset and nervous and you're like, shut up, come on, let's go, suck it up, be a man, quit crying like a baby, all that stuff. And that's what makes it linger even longer when we just acknowledge what's happening in there. So I felt that was pretty helpful. And so, like I was mentioning, the ancient civilizations. So previous to these two, there was Pan. Yeah, there's another name for it. It eludes me, but basically, there was a split that happened after Pan was infiltrated. In a sense, you can read about it in the book. It's pretty cool. It's got dragons and stuff in it too, which I love. Atlantis had like this very high level of communication with complex thought patterns and visual images. So as they communicated, they were actually able to hold a picture in their mind and share that with others. And I've experienced that with people too, where you can actually see what they're talking about quite vividly. And then other people, you don't have a clue. It's really difficult. As we all know, they had very advanced technology, more focused to make their life easier. They had conveyances. They had things that helped them. It was like less physical than in Lemuria. Lemurians like to use their body more. They were more, let's all work together and do this, rather than use a machine or something. And Atlantis, they had roads, vehicles. They did a lot of work with crystals. I feel that from other lifetimes where they were fusing energy and working with the energy of the crystals to do all manner of things, like even control the weather and heal people. And they traveled a lot all over the sea and the air in these giant, magnificent ships, apparently. Their structures were more polished stone. The pyramid is a good example of an Atlantean type design where it was, the stone, very complex stone, precisely made, couldn't be replicated today. And then I had a covering on it as well. I forget what the covering was made out of, gold capstone. I've always felt like that was an initiation chamber or energy device. I know it was definitely used for initiations, but what its original intention, I'm not 100% sure of. There's also been stories that it was used to help balance the grids of this planet after a major upheaval. And they were very musical, but their music was more stringed instruments, very melodic, very complex compositions of that nature. And then Lemuria is more of like the will and the body connection, more of the emotion, more of feeling, more of dancing and singing and swinging from trees and being acrobats and, all the stuff we see in Puna. This really is Lemuria here in Hawaii. I mean, you see that in a lot of places in Hawaii. And even with the Hawaiians, they're very, very embodied, very strong people, very grounded, at least how I experience them. And this warm aloha, the aloha is real. It's more than just so many things. It's that love, and it's that strength and the sharing and the connection, not because you want anything, because that's just what it does. It's like the sun that shines. It just does these things. So the same with the Lemurians, they're very open hearts and warm. They live simply and close to nature. I mean, they had art and all kinds of things and pottery and things they enjoyed making. They didn't rely too much on technology like the Atlanteans. They were actually able to travel by teleportation, apparently, according to this book, which I believe absolutely, whether it's just with your own meditative practice or actually physically doing it, should be pretty cool. So they were more earth-based, enjoyed the dancing, playing music. And theirs, again, like Lower Puna, was drums and rhythm, like the drum circles we have and all that on the big island of Hawaii here. And the enjoyment of the physical body, working with it, playing, very balanced and strong physically, natural acrobats. So this is the solution I got from this. And it's interesting. I recently came across another gentleman's material, the work he's doing. His name is Brian Ridgway. I just finished his book and I signed up for his 8-week program where it's very much similar to this. And it's similar to work I've seen in the shadow work groups, work I was doing at the clinic, working with helping people shift their level of consciousness. Same with the work I do with the Natiru and the Sekam healings. He found a way to pull it all together. I've watched him do some sessions online, and he is taking people right into that emotion, right into the emotion. Where is it at in the body, and really just feeling it and allowing it to express in the remembrance that we are these unlimited beings of light, love, and divinity, that what we took on as far as beliefs determine our reality and what we experience. And so it's very much similar to this, is like when these emotions would come up and we didn't want to feel them, we suppressed them by any means necessary. And a lot of that was the judgments, the thoughts, the beliefs. And so he talks about spells. And so the spell was the thing we took on as a child, like there's something wrong with me. Same with the judgment, the core negative belief, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm not lovable. This is why I deserve this thing. And it's largely unconscious. And so by feeling the emotion, clearing the energy, letting it go, it allows for greater connection to manifest the truth of who we are. And that's ever present. And we already have everything we possibly could need or want. It's just we have set this limitation on ourselves. For me, it's largely accepting my experience. Like, okay, for me, I got surgery and now I'm in pain, but not as bad. It's getting better, and just allowing myself to feel it. When thoughts come up, judgments about it, like, oh no, what does this mean? Does this mean this is happening? Or is this going to be like the last person I heard that got this surgery and what he went through and the side effects, and he's not healed up all the way now, and all these things the mind can do. And guess what? That's what happens, rather than just feeling it and being with it and allowing the release. What I've been doing is just allow myself to feel. You don't really need anybody to facilitate this. You can do it yourself, where you just notice what you're feeling and you let yourself feel it. And it'll be like a jolt. There's a lot of times where I'm like kind of upset and angry. I'm like, yeah, just feel that. And then there's like a couple jolts and I just breathe it out. And sometimes there's a little emotion, but not that often. Again, if you haven't done much of that yet, you want to find a nice safe space to do that. I used to love driving in the car and I could scream and yell, like the primal scream. Nobody's around. It's not causing any drama for anybody or any scaring the animals or the cat or the dog or anything. And again, it's like not judging that, because it's not the expression of it, it's the judgment of it, whether it's from us or others. If they're judging us, that's their stuff. We don't have to take that on, but I understand it's not always easy to block that out. That's why a lot of us don't want to speak and do things in public, because there's always the opportunity for someone to project more judgments on us, because God knows our mind's already doing it enough, you know. So basically the solution is to bring in the light of love, the loving light of spirit. And that is a little confusing for me, and maybe if somebody watches this, they can comment on what that exactly means. I took it to mean the energy of all things, the divine, like God, essentially, the universe, and our spirit, our connection to that. Just whenever something coming up, hold it in a place of love, like a child that was crying, just hold them and love them rather than try to change what they're experiencing or explain to them why they're experiencing it. Because we don't know. I don't know why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing. Letting go of the guilt, the shame. There's nothing negative or positive. That's the judgment we put on it. There's plenty of people I know that enjoy doing things I would think were really negative and detrimental, and yet they don't. And it's really not, because it's not really hurting anybody, and it's not even hurting them. You know, there's like, I know people who smoke their whole lives. They don't get cancer or nothing. They're fine. And me, not me, I'm just getting sick every week, and I had to quit because my body was telling me like, no, this isn't really for you. And I had to listen to it. Otherwise, other things would start getting louder and louder. Like, hey, you don't have the kind of body that can allow this, or I don't have the ability to let go of the thoughts that it's bad for me. So then again, yeah, the energy of loving light. So I often see that as an actual light and the feeling of love. And the love part's really important, because there's a lot of light that isn't really loving. Things hide in the light that want to pretend and take advantage of us. Just for your own discernment. I did another class. It talked a lot about the shielding and commanding our personal space. And we can always ask for help from the divine. As I was reading the book, they were talking about how there was opportunities in Lemuria, as what was happening with the cataclysm, that they were able to hear the guidance from the divine, from the universe, essentially. And some of them were able to escape by building boats. Like the design of a boat came into someone's head. They're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna build this boat and get the hell out of here. And then same with in Atlantis too, where the will would come in for certain beings and they would be able to navigate a way out and find a way out. And we're able to go to other civilizations like Peru and Egypt and what have you. And, you know, I don't know the truth of all this, but I find it really interesting, and it definitely resonates. Especially there's some other stuff in there about hybridization of humans and animals, like why that played out with the will. That was super fascinating, because I have a lifetime where I was actually a hybrid animal. I did a past life regression. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, I'm weird, but like this is super, super weird. But I've also read in Edgar Casey's material that they spoke of these beings in Atlantis and how there was an effort to try to heal them. And again, that was the Atlanteans' view that there's something wrong with them, when there was really nothing wrong. The Atlanteans really looked down on those that embraced their will, because it was uncomfortable for them, because they were rejecting it. Kind of like me when I first moved here and I went to a gathering and there was a big cuddle puddle. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do a cuddle puddle. That's weird. And now it's like, oh, okay, it's not that weird, you know. But where I grew up, we didn't do that stuff. What that is, and I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to share with everybody, and how that has inspired me, and hopefully give you a taste of what this book is about. And then there's a whole series, there's a whole journey you can take with this. I plan to continue on and see what happens. I'm going to do a guided meditation with, like I said, you know, I get a lot of anxiety and tension and this emotion around talking to people. And there's all these reasons I could share with you why. And at the same time, like I was saying, those are all judgments based on what I've learned so far about my life and who I am. And more, I'm just going to let that go and feel it. So if you want to join me, we can do that now. Because as I was talking and doing the class, I felt a lot of like tension and a need to try to like get it out and convey what I'm saying. And so there's a lot of like energy in me still. So I'm going to do a guided meditation, something how I help alleviate that energy. And also I'm going to invite you guys that if you feel any emotion come up, I'll do a bit of a guidance into some emotion that we're experiencing, and just have us actually go into that emotion and feel it without thinking about it, without judging it. and I'll be there with you to keep you from getting into that space. So if you're willing to do that, just give me a thumbs up. All right, cool. All right, so let's close our eyes. Take a deep breath. Another deep breath. Long, slow exhale. Just tune into the body, where it's tight or tense. Mine, I got some tension in the shoulders and neck. So I'm just going to kind of rub those as I'm keeping my eyes closed. And I'm focusing on that breath, the energy of the letting go of that breath. That's the energy, my focus in this moment as I'm massaging, like how it feels to let go. Stretch. You stay with the breath, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Just notice any tension and tingling somewhere in the body. Just notice where that is and use the breath to go right to that space, to acknowledge it, gently stretch and release. Soothing, calming that area. And clenching the jaw, relaxing the shoulders, letting go of the mind, just letting it all go. Just notice what's in your mind. Just breathe it out, let it go. Often a focus on time, judgment, a concern, an awareness. So come to that awareness. Breathe into that space where the awareness exists. Whether it's an emotion or sensation in the body, go right to that space. Allow yourself to feel that energy. Breathe out. Notice if some emotion comes up. Notice the desire to run up to the head, to run away from that area. So rather than doing that, place a hand where you're feeling that energy. Tips of your fingers, applying pressure to that space. Just be with that space as you breathe and let go. Try to focus on the belly breath, expanding the belly and letting go. Just feel what's there. Now here's the crucial part. Don't judge it. Don't ask what it is. Don't try to figure it out. Just allow the feeling, allow the release, allow the letting go. It's safe to make a noise. If you feel comfortable making a noise, do that now. Let any movement happen as you feel it in the moment. Maybe some twitching, some jolts of energy in the body. Again, don't judge it. Notice if the energy moves to somewhere else. Moves to somewhere else in the body. Move the hand with it. Letting it know I'm there. I'm listening. The release. Just notice if there's any change, any dissipation of the charge, the energy there in that space. Continue to breathe and let go. Bring in the awareness of your spirit, your higher self, to acknowledge what's being felt, not what it is, what it means, or that it's happening. Just be with it. Just be with the experience. Just listen. What's there? Breathe and let go. And the ability to hold space for whatever this is. And the ability to just love it as it is. There's nothing wrong. Be that loving presence. Allow yourself to feel what's there and just let go. Allow the flow of energy. You can ask for assistance from the divine source, the energy of all things. Help acknowledge and love this space, this energy, whatever's being expressed as it is. Ask that this energy be held in unconditional love and acceptance. That it begin to trust me, that it's okay to feel, to experience. I will do my best not to judge it or shut it down. But there will be times where I may not be able to express it openly and verbally. I'll do my best to be present and not condemn it, not try to entirely shut it down, to allow the expression, the highest level that I can release in the moment. Asking that will be gentle with me and understand as I try and I strive to be more loving and kind to my body, to my emotions. To listen to my spirit and allow it to guide from on high, and also feel my will and know what's appropriate, how I can dance with what is around me, what's available to what is around me, and not judge it, not be upset by it, for knowing that these things will limit my ability to fully manifest the joy, the love, the happiness I so desire. See yourself hugging this aspect of yourself. First ask if it's okay. Does it trust you enough? Is it okay if I hug you, if I acknowledge you in this way? What is it you need? I'm here for you. And if it's a no, that's okay. Just know it's not ready. It's not time. Be patient. Be the love, the light that you are. Once you're complete, put your hands in prayer position and bow before this energy, this aspect of creation and experience. It's asking for your attention and your love, nothing more. Knowing you can release it as appropriate, as you're comfortable, as you both grow and strive to be in balance with each other once again. We're going to move our awareness to the heart. Come back to our energetic center. Let's breathe into the heart. And we'll put a smile on our face the next inhale. Stretch once again. Yawn. Move the body. Allow any residual shakes or twitches to come forth. Any more emotion comes up, just allow it to be felt and released. There's tears. There's joy. There's anger. Allow that felt experience, release. Focusing on the heart. Know that you are loved, all parts of self. You are on this great journey of integration and wholeness. No parts will be left behind. We see you, we acknowledge you, we love you. We're sorry for the times we did not listen. We're sorry for the times we weren't able to let you express. We're sorry for the times we shut down our divine inspiration and we didn't always listen to what we were most passionate about and chose the safety and the comfort. So it is. Slowly open your eyes. Come back to the awareness of your breath, the room in which you're sitting. Just allow your eyes to look around the room, floating from area to area, just witnessing your surroundings, feeling what you feel as you look at them, feeling your connection to your body, feeling yourself deep, centered, rooted within. So you're looking out, you're present, you're grounded, you're centered. Welcome back.